At this time, I'm going to ask you to please silence your cell phone if you can. Take your seats, and let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What a great turnout today. Thank you all for coming out. At this time, I'd like to introduce Sandra and Mary Jo, our board members that head up the committee that started this process and has been very helpful educating the rest of the board on where we're at and where we're going. So, Sandra, if you want to take it away.
Am I on? Yeah, now I'm on. Okay, very good. Yeah, so welcome. Thank you, everyone, for coming. It is great to see such a good turnout for such an important topic for our community. So I'm really glad to see everybody here. My name is Sandra Gutknecht. I'm on the board, recently elected in April. And I serve as the secretary on the board. And for this particular topic, I have been the project lead on our RFP. And Mary Jo has been on this project team with me. So I want to introduce a little bit of, there we go. So I have my speaker notes so that I don't lose track of what I'm doing. So I want to, mostly in this session, we have two purposes. One is to impart information to you about what we've done and what the process has been, and then to open it up for comments and questions from all of you in order to inform us on the board. And so I want to ask you to let me go through my presentation. We'll allow plenty of time for everyone who wants to speak and what you have to say. But you know, if you have a question, write it down, but you may find your question is answered by material that I present as I keep going through the presentation. So the first item on the agenda is, why are we doing this? What is the reasoning and thought process behind this project? I want to introduce the process and what at least our original timeline was, what kind of responses that we have gotten and what our evaluation process is, and then what is our criteria for selecting between these companies, and then we'll open it up for the comments and questions from all of you. So let's get started. I think the first question maybe on many of your minds is, why is the board going out to bid? And just know, in our role as fiduciaries, which is important to us on the board, it is a generally accepted practice to go out to bid every 3 to 5 years on our major contracts. For us, a major contract, of course, is the management contract, but also Spectrum, Securitas, artistic maintenance. You know, these are major contracts that we have. And it has been 7 years since Sun Lakes has gone out to bid for a management company. It occurred in 2018, and FSR came on board in January of 2019. It is our obligation to ensure that this community is getting the best value for your investment. At the same time, we as a board have identified what we feel are a number of shortcomings with First Service. These have been shared with First Service, and they have this opportunity to respond in the bid that they sent us for management, for continuing management. But each of these different management companies have their strengths and capabilities, and we felt it would be good and prudent of us on behalf of this community to find out what the other companies' capabilities are out there and what kind of value they could bring to us here in the community. So that's why we're doing this. All right. So we're here to describe the process to you. We are not reviewing individual companies for you. Again, the names are confidential. They don't know each other who's responded. So I'm going to walk through what our overall process is. So to get started, back in August, the board formed an RFP, which is an acronym for a request for proposal. So companies send out a request for proposal and receive proposals back. The team was formed with one board member at the time was myself, the chairman of the Finance Advisory Committee, who is now on the board, and then 2 community members who have strong business and actually HOA management experience. The RFP itself was drafted using a template and recommendations from something called the Community Association Institute, CAI, which is a recognized industry resource. And in fact, as board members, we are all signed up and regularly able to use them as a resource. On August 28th, the request for proposal was sent out to 9 management companies, saying the proposals were due back on September 19th. And we had 8 of the 9 companies respond. In early September, before they would send their proposals on, we invited any of them who wanted to come on site to tour the property and meet with board members to do that. And we did host 4 companies that came on site. Some of these companies are familiar with Sun Lakes and I think didn't feel the need to come back, but 4 of them did. And for those of you who've looked the proposal up, the original published date to select a company was August 1st. We, I guess, naively assumed we would get 3, maybe 4 proposals, and it might be obvious what we would want to do. And of course, this is not the case. This is taking much longer than we thought. We have yet to make a selection. We are not here today to announce to you the company because we haven't made a selection yet. And we are still in the evaluation process, which is why we want to gather input from all of you. I want to say a word about the 9 companies. They came from an original list of over 700 homeowner associations in Southern California. This is a list that's published again by these community association industries resources. That list of 700 was reduced to 125 communities that have golf course and food venues like us. The list was further then reduced to about 28 companies managing those communities who managed multiple communities with those type of amenities. The final list of 9 then was a result of being reviewed by the Finance Advisory Committee previously, and then most recently when we went to send them out, found 2 of the companies have been bought out and have merged. So we ended up with 9 companies, but that's how we got those names. The RFP begins with a thorough description of Sun Lake. So who are we, our size, our amenities, our location, and aspects of our lifestyle here. So we wanted these companies to be sure they understood who we were. Then it contains about 4 pages of questions for them to respond to about the fees they would charge, their financial and technology capabilities. Oops. I'm sorry, I'm talking away and I'm forgetting to advance the slides. My apologies. All right, so I got through that slide. Okay, here we are. Sandra, click the slides. Expertise managing golf and food and beverage, the transition process, their vision as a company and their culture, and any expertise they had in marketing, particularly for us internally to grow participation, and then their leadership profiles. In addition, the RFP asks for several documents for them to provide us sample financials, job descriptions for positions that they see being on site, a proposed organizational chart, and a sample management contract, so we could look at the kind of terms that they would be asking for. The top proposals of the 8 all answered the RFP questions and included the requested documents as well as some of their own marketing materials. Not all of the responses gave us that information. So of the 8 responses, we went through them word by word. I think I've read them all at least 3 times. We sent out additional questions to 5 of the companies asking for clarification or more information. And then we invited 4 of those companies their executives to come and give on-site presentations to the board. The 5th company voluntarily withdrew then and did not get on site for a presentation. One more company presented to us via Zoom only, and then the 2 remaining proposals, as I said, were not really aligned with the RFP, so we did not advance them. So as of today, the board and mostly the RFP committee have spent nearly 2 months reviewing and reading these documents, interviewing these companies, and checking references. We developed a comparison matrix with a number of attributes down the left and the companies across the top, with pages of notes regarding strengths and weaknesses. And so what we're going to show you is kind of the column on the left, what were our criteria. And then, of course, this step is to host a town hall and interact with, engage, and hear from our residents. All right. And I need a drink of water. So the first question that was really important in going through this process is, what makes Sun Lakes unique? And some of you may think, well, if you want a management company, just research the ones that manage companies just like ours, and they should have experience. And the answer is there aren't a lot of communities just like ours. And I had, at the time, not realized just how unique we really were. So first of all, we are a large-scale community. The definition of that is more than 1,000 homes or over 1,000 acres, and we are 3,327 homes. So this is a large workload for the general manager. They are not just interacting with a board of directors and residents, but it means as large scale, we have on-site staff, which smaller HOAs do not have. They'll share a general manager. And with food and beverage, we have about 100 employees on site that need to be managed by their on-site leadership. We're 55 plus, which means we want to volunteer and we want to have activities, unlike communities of working adults and families with children. We want entertainment, and we have groups, and we want to travel, and that's management staff that's putting that together. We have club amenities, significant food and beverage and golf amenities, and those are not present in most HOAs. I told you how we whittled 700 HOAs down to like 28. So the management company must have resource and expertise in these areas and to be able to place a general manager who can direct and oversee this array of activities. These are complex businesses and very different from managing an HOA. In terms of home prices, many of the HOA communities, particularly locally, are out in the desert with golf and food and beverage and La Quinta and Palm Desert. But most of those homes sell for well over $1 million. And the average home price here in Sun Lakes is around $400,000. So that is a different economic mindset, a different style and nature of the amenities and for the leadership. We are totally private, and we're committed to keeping it that way. But it limits opportunities for management companies to increase revenues. And some of the companies bid, for instance, a percent of revenue or a percent of revenue increases. So that's limited when they're private and have to be more creative, and that's what we were looking for. It's a different type of marketing approach. And then location. We need to keep our facilities staffed with excellent, motivated, friendly employees who are competent in their jobs, but we are not near a high-density population, such as the ocean down by the beach, or in the midst of a city, or out in Coachella. So it's harder to attract the talent. It makes living here very affordable, but it creates challenges for our management company. So let's get into a little bit of our RFP criteria then for evaluating. So the HOA is the most important piece. That's the $16 million business that we all participate in. And so this was our most important evaluation. Looking for these companies' descriptions of their resident services. What would be your experience with administration? Will they be open all day? Do they return phone calls? Do they track responses and questions from the residents and get back to them? How do they handle new resident orientation? How often do they have this? And what do they focus on in terms of our vast array of amenities and what it means to live in a community? Oh, I can't just park anywhere I want to. How do they handle board orientation? And what is their process? Who do they engage and what materials do they use? Do they do an annual strategic planning session? What tools do they use and what are their best practices that they engage in all of their communities to help guide the board through the year and to create some consistency from board to board each year? How do they handle delinquencies? And this is interesting in the desert with these $1 million homes. Many of those smaller communities don't even deal with delinquencies, and it's quite a workload here. What process do they use and how do they compare costs? One of the companies actually, if you pay your dues or don't, they report that to the credit agency. So that's a unique approach. So everyone had a different way of doing that. How do they handle compliance with on-site staff? What tools and technologies are standard to save time and to be efficient? How do they do reserves planning? Many of you know we just purchased the Smart Properties software because we've talked about it here, but do they report against targets? Do they manage at a schedule to get through all those items in a year? Do they just wait until things are broken? What is their approach? And then any expertise they have in marketing. Now, I see Michelle is sitting here. I think the billboards are up on the freeway now. Is that not quite yet? Okay, not yet. But you've seen from the last open session, we're putting billboards up just to raise awareness about the community and to attract home buyers and potentially to attract more in the golfing community and grow participation that way. So we're looking at how these companies describe these things and what they consider to be their focus. All right. Then we have our amenities, the next one being golf. So we're looking for agronomy expertise. So not just an on-site superintendent, because we've got a great one doing a good job here, but also just corporate resources that can back this person up, or if we have questions or are looking for alternatives, have they researched technology and solutions that could be available to us? What technology do they use? Automating their irrigation, robotic mowing, we just had a demonstration here, soil enhancement. So these are examples of things we were looking for them to describe. Do they have buying power? Mostly due to their size and participation in group purchasing organizations. That's a GPO. So that would be mostly around the pro shop. Again, kind of expertise in increasing participation and hosting of events, particularly interfacing with food and beverage and drawing residents in. And then our food and beverage capabilities. So we made it clear in the RFP that we have a third-party management company running our food and beverage, but we were still looking for food and beverage expertise. We're looking for them to define their hospitality, their buying power. These are all opportunities where we're looking for synergy between this management company and CCL. So how can we enhance and grow the hospitality and welcoming feature of our food and beverage? CCL is a huge company and has buying power, but is there synergy with the HOA management? What is their experience with the subsidy? I think I've heard this from many of you. Many communities have a monthly subsidy to use, an incentive to use the restaurant. And what can we learn from them and other communities? They have experience with house accounts, with mobile ordering, with home delivery. And how do they approach marketing to grow participation? So we're looking to have the two companies work closely together to share ideas and to participate. It's not like, oh, we manage the HOA and that company does food and beverage. We need them communicating and working together and sharing ideas and being stronger together. So analytics from their POS systems and their view of catering. So particularly this, expertise with a company in 55 plus, that's something they can share with CCL. So that was our questions on food and beverage. So those are our amenities. Then we asked a number of questions that are more global or overall as a management company. And the first one would be their technology comparison. So what is their overall software platform? The RFP team learned a couple of new words. One of them is Vantica and the other one is Sync. So these turn out to be very popular and very well used and highly regarded software platforms. Most of our finalists use one or the other of these. There are other systems, and some of the larger companies have actually their own proprietary system. So we were able to compare a resident portal, which I'll talk about in a minute. Again, we asked for sample financials, so how are those structured? How did all the compliance monitoring occurs through this software, invoice processing, and vendor management. We asked them about their POS system. Do you have one that's preferred? Can you use ours? Do you use one? Do you have a different one for golf and food and beverage? And how do those interface with the financials? And do they handle house accounts? Invoice processing. This is an important area to be sure that we are able to subvert any nefarious activity, right? The same person orders it, approves the bill, and authorizes payment. So there are software tools like StrongRoom, Intact. We ask them about their process, who approves, who pays, how do you review the invoices. What do they use for the reserve study? And so, like I said, we had smart properties, but we asked how else do they integrate that. Many of them, the reserve study, those elements and the management of that all occurs in their overall software platform. And then a resident portal. So this is something we don't have here in Sun Lakes, and we have the opportunity to, where you see something, valve is broken, water is gushing in one of the common areas, or something is broken, you call, you leave a message, you hope someone calls you back, or you send an email. In the resident portal, you'll pick what this is, and it immediately goes to the right person for resolution. If you're putting in an architectural application, you can get feedback and responses through the portal. If you have a violation, we can notify you of that through the portal. So this is an alternative communication tool. You can check your balance. You can, see what your house accounts are, what you've been charged. So it's a great source of information, and it's very easy to use. So if we bring on a company who has one of these, there'll be training and lots of support to help us get started. So it was interesting to see those different opportunities. Then, of course, we very much focused on their financial capabilities. For instance, the timing. When are financial reports completed? The 10th of the month. Some of them said the 20th. One of them told us they get them in 5 days. And what is included, which we got to see in the sample financials. How do they handle variance reporting? Who completes this, and how is it reviewed? And does it really demonstrate accountability to the budget? Do they present this to the board and seek approval based on variances? Do they provide trending and forecasting of how we'll finish the year? Their reputation for accuracy with their financials. And again, on the RFP team, we had some folks that are familiar with some of these management companies and can actually let us know some of the reputation of their CFO. What did they recommend for on-site staffing, particularly to financials? So did they recommend an accounting manager, a controller, a CPA? That's a very high-powered person. Accounts payable, accounts receivable staff. Do they allow electronic payments? And is there a fee for those? And what options do they offer? How do they handle investments? Do they use their own service, or do they recommend that we find a third party and handle that ourselves? Do we need to change to their banks in order to get integration with their software? Can we stay with the ones we have? How do they handle budget? What is that based on? What is their cycle? Do they embrace a finance committee to review that, or how do they interact with the board? And then what analysis do they do? So we're looking for a culture of reporting performance to the board on a monthly basis. Again, walking us through trends, variances, forecasting, and issues around balance sheet performance. And then, of course, a lot of it can boil down to their fee and cost comparisons. So these were typical components of the actual financial bid on these companies. There's generally a base monthly fee. And then the question is, well, what's in, what's out, what's included, what's not, what's charged separately. Many of the companies then also secure a payroll management percentage, but they calculate it different. Is it just on base salaries? Is it salaries and benefits together? Does that include processing the payroll through something like ADP or not? There may be a separate payroll processing fee. Do they charge for IT services, a help desk, upgrades, supports, your system backups, or just for special projects or wireless assessment? Startup fees, that's to transfer your bank accounts and get us set up in their software. There is something in these proposals called Exhibit A, which are the things they do charge separately for, generally out of their corporate office. And a lot of this has to do with delinquencies, liens, foreclosures. There's letters that are sent, their charges for these. I want to say also around escrow, the things that the management company needs to provide for an escrow process. So we could compare those. And then there are companies that suggested a % of revenues. And again, we wanted that, of course, to be an incentive to grow participation in amenities. This is not an incentive to just increase our dues or our fees for golf. It's centered around growing participation. The last piece of this, which got very different from company to company, was around this idea of performance metrics and incentives. So some of them talk to us about responsiveness. So they can actually measure phone calls, what goes to voicemail, what has a live answer, when are the calls returned, accuracy and timeliness of financial reports. If they miss it, if they miss the date or we find errors, there is some consequences on their end. Again, the percentage of amenity revenue is an incentivized to grow. Variance to budgets, how do they handle those? Are those allowed? Are there rewards if they're on budget? Do they get penalized if they're over? Fees as a percentage of payroll. Our feeling was at times that might incentivize the hiring of staff, which is to their advantage. So we needed to understand a proper balance there. And then the introduction of technology solutions to improve efficiencies. How do we incentivize that? How is that just the job? Is that rewarded? How do we measure that? So those are the components of what we're looking at in these proposals and what we're assessing and distilling and trying to compare. So this is where we are today. What is next? So we are continuing to evaluate these. We are not completely done with reference checks and gathering the information and answering the questions that we have. We're also looking at the opportunity to potentially seek some consulting support who will help us assess the contracts where, these numbers and these numbers are right up front, but there's this other thing they charge you, and that's kind of buried in a paragraph that you may not have noticed. So just to be sure we're very thorough in that evaluation, and we can find resources again through this Community Associations Institute. We will need legal counsel review who participate with us in the negotiations and then in reviewing the contract and continuing to contract references. So that's where we are today, and that's what we have before us. And so that's what I have to share out to you, and I think I did this in under half an hour. That's great. And now I want to open it up to questions and comments from all of you. Mostly we are here to gather information, so we want to know what's on your mind about this process. What do you see as the potential? What do you want the board to know? And what do you think is important for our community? So thank you very much, and I'm going to ask you to come up to the microphone. I think probably have to adjust the height from me, and share your thoughts with us. And then I'll wrap up. Thank you.
Okay, if you'll make a line over by the podium, we'll start out with comments at this time. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes if possible. Thank you.
My name is Jerry Phelps, and I'm very pleased that we are looking to replace FSR. I would like to know, however, why you're not considering a company that would take care of the dining room and the golf course. Why are we still keeping CCL? Why is it that we're not looking for something that does all of it? Because I would imagine the more that they do, the more that we can save. CCL has not proved well here. I can't imagine why we would stay with them. And as long as we're looking for a management company that handles the restaurant and hospitality, then certainly that should be the same company that also handles the golf course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I don't think I've ever seen a crowd like this in a very, very long time. What could we do? We'd even bring cookies. My name's Linda Spalding. I served with Dan Comerford, Jim Searcy, John Clark, Sandy Moyer on the master board when we went out to get a new management company, and that was in 2018. We went out because we were not given financials for over 6 months, and that was with Associa. We stopped paying their management fee. They still did not give us 6 months. That was our reason for looking for a management company. Looking for a management company is not just sending out RFPs with all of these things that you want. It took us close to 6 months to finalize on the right management company for Sun Lakes, and that was First Service Residential. We visited over 6 communities that were managed by other companies. We sent RFPs to. We visited over 3 management company facilities. We met the owner of First Service Residential, Bob Costa, who made us feel at home in his office, and he introduced us to every department. No other management company did that when we visited. First Management Company is a family and treats you like you are family. They build relationships, and you are not just a contract to First Service. The logistics of setting up a new management company is huge. There are new accounting formats, new vendors, decals, house accounts, and much, much more. It took over a week to transition from Associa to First Service Residential. We made sure that in our contract with First Service Residential that we included and kept every employee we kept their vacation time, their tenure, their sick time, and their hourly salary or salary, and their tenure. That was really important to us. I didn't see that mentioned here. They did what the master board requested. Have you, master board, done this in your RFPs? Again, I didn't see that on all of the paperwork given today. Our previous management company was Associa, like I said. They sent to Sun Lakes a new manager, Chris Mitchell, came from Associa. Chris Mitchell got no support from Associa. He was set here and actually almost hung out to dry. And that was really, really bad. But Chris stepped up to the plate, and he did the best he could. He was on his own, pretty much, except for Jason. Jason helped him a lot. When we hired First Service, they immediately sent support for Chris. He wasn't alone. And that's how we moved forward. I have the original contract from First Service. I hope the new contract that the board is reviewing from First Service, it has to be much better than anybody else, because First Service wants to keep us. And I know they will bend over backwards to keep us, to you, the board, ask for what we need. They will support us. To this day, I still haven't heard why we're replacing them. What are they doing wrong? If it's a personality conflict, if you don't like Chris Mitchell, you have the right to ask for a new manager. Why are we getting rid of the whole company? I know, I see you timing me down there.
Time.
Time's up, Linda.
You said or some.
Finish up.
So, I believe we cannot find a better management company. I just want to say the presentation that you just gave had a lot of what ifs and wants. The master board has the right to ask those of First Service. And what is all of this going to cost us? Because I see contracts, I see consultants.
There are many others who want to speak.
There's a lot. Time.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Linda.
Does my heart proud to see all these Sun Lakers here. First, I want to start, I'm sorry, my name is Raylene Kretschmann. I live on Bay Hill. First, I want to start out by applauding the Delegate Assembly for listening to their districts and taking a bold step with the Master Board. I did hear one delegate say her district voted for change, and to that I'd say be careful what you wish for. This Master Board hasn't yet earned the trust of the community. Most of its members are new to Sun Lakes and are still learning how this community works. Change can be great when it's done with purpose and transparency. But removing FSR without a clear, fact-based reason isn't leadership, it's overreach. And providing an explanation after the fact doesn't equal transparency. Saying it's just due diligence doesn't explain why our long-standing management partner needs to be replaced. We all want what's best for Sun Lakes. I would ask the Master Board to remember, you serve the residents, and that trust isn't given. It's earned through honesty and transparency. And this community deserves nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Master Board and fellow residents. I am Anita Lawrence, and my husband and I have lived here for 27 years. I'm here today to address the concerns I have to the Master Board, who are considering bringing in another management company to manage our homeowners association. I am not a confrontational person, but I feel very strongly about the issue that affects this community that I call home. Recently, a survey was sent out to residents for which 1,238 surveys were returned, with only 4 complaints about First Service Residential. My question again to the board is, why do you want to replace them? It is my impression that some of the current board members have an agenda to replace First Service regardless of their job performance. Let me make this crystal clear to residents. First Service works at the direction of the board and keeps Sun Lakes legal. Board members may come and go, but First Service provides the continuity that keeps a community of this magnitude operating in a successful manner. Today, 4 of the 5 board members have lived here less than 8 years and do not have the knowledge or know the history of this community. We currently have dedicated and key First Service employees with many years of service who possess a wealth of Sun Lakes history and knowledge. Bringing in a new company will not ensure these valued employees will be able to transition to a new company and stay to provide the continuity of service that we enjoy with them working directly on site. In some cases, a new management company may not offer on-site management services. And if a resident has a problem that needs to be addressed, you may very well find yourself calling them where they are located, which could very well be in another state. And bringing in another company does not always solve problems. It could very well create new ones, such as higher HOA fees and less service than we currently have. With the agenda that the current board has of replacing First Service, they have created increased turmoil and uncertainty among key First Service employees who are currently looking to leave, or in the instance of one employee, has announced his departure. I don't know for sure, but this uncertainty may have contributed to his decision. 4 of the current board members, along with a board member who resigned earlier this year, are responsible for bringing in CCL, the current food and beverage company that manages the restaurant. If you attend or watch the open session of the Master Board, you will know that to date, CCL has not been able to stop the downward trend in the food and beverage financials. With CCL still struggling to find their footing, now is not the time to contemplate changing property management companies. Residents, if you feel as I do, I urge you to speak with a Master Board member and ask them to consider retaining First Service Residential. Making changes is not always for the better and could very well have a detrimental and negative impact on our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Master Board and residents. Wow, what a crowd. Important topic to all of us. My comments will be a little bit more brief, but they will be redundant, as I believe some of these folks will echo our same sentiments because we feel so passionately about this subject. Many residents are curious about the reason the board wants to remove FSR for another management company. And despite Sandra's outstanding presentation, I still don't know why they're going through this exercise. When we changed from associate to FSR, it was no secret why. They did not provide financial statements over a 6-month period. Their financial reporting was unacceptable. Although it was justified, it was a rough transition for residents and staff. Also got us through this ugly time during COVID. It was not pleasant, but they did what they had to do. The CCL contract, spearheaded by former board members and maybe others, has resulted in gross failure. Why do we want to do another contract? I mean, we can't get through this current one. Most residents understand the board makes decisions. This is going to be an elementary example, but I'm not sure every resident really gets the relationship between the board and our administration staff. FSR is responsible for implementing the decisions, and they are responsible for making legal decisions. For example, if the board decided to paint the men's restrooms pink, Chris Mitchell might say, gee, I'm not sure that's a good idea, but we'll get Mark Schleiden right on it. Because the board makes these good or bad decisions, but it's FSR that implements those. They don't question whether the pink bathrooms was a good idea, but they do it. I've come to the conclusion that some of the bad decisions made lately are most likely the result of new resident board members who have little knowledge of Sun Lakes and are unwilling to take the heat. If we knew FSR's failures, we might be more agreeable to this change, but you have not provided any reasons. We're still waiting for valid reasons. It makes me feel that the changes that need to be made are with the board members. Yes, you were elected by the homeowners to manage our property, but we are disappointed, and it's time for performance evaluations. Now, I'm speaking as Jean Dobson, delegate. It would be in the board's best interest to take seriously the motions presented at last Thursday's delegate assembly meeting. Failure to do so may lead to the next step outlined, which was recalling one or more board members. But the more I think about it, the latter option is the best choice. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, well, I'm a brand new resident here without an agenda, obviously, no paper, and I just want to thank the board actually for putting together a very nice presentation. I presently still work, I'm still employed. What they just showed up there was what I do every day. I'm a buyer for a mid-sized company, which mid-size means between 50 million up to 500 million. So that RFP they put together was actually, I was looking for the holes. They actually covered a lot of stuff. So I think the board did a pretty good job. That's one thing I want to say here to you guys. So good work on that. And I believe I also heard our secretary down there say, don't you have to do this every 7 years? Is that what's required?
3 to 5.
Every 3 to 5, whatever. Okay, hey, I got bad hearing. I used to be a long-haired rock and roller. Anyway, but I believe they're just doing their job right now, and it's always good to open your eyes. My job is actually in procurement, what they're doing right now, and it's always good to have options. I don't want to be limited, but I do want to stress, quality is number one, not cost. Quality is number one. Service is number two. If I don't have quality and service, I don't care what it costs, because that means I'm going to have a lot of crap. So I just think that's a great thing they're doing. We're going down a path. We're not saying this is going to be our end game resolution, but we're at least going down a path to look at it. So thank you guys for doing this. Nobody pays these folks. They're doing it for their own will, very good, free will, thank you. And I've only been here 3 months, so hey, I'm real new. And my name's Edward Conchaldi. We'll see you soon. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Messier. I served on a financial advisory committee.
Just a little closer, Bob. A little closer.
My name is Bob Messier. I served on the financial advisory committee, and I had the opportunity to review the contract that FSR has. The contract has the fiduciary responsibility totally on the board, even though they do the books, even though they make the decisions that affect the board and us as a community. I made a number of comments to the board. I rewrote the agreement and submitted it to the board showing these inequities. And the first thing I heard today was that we, the board, have the fiduciary responsibility. I think the board should be looking at an agreement that has a CPA involved, and that company has the fiduciary responsibility. There needs to be clear designation of roles and responsibilities of the board and that organization. And in doing that, you decide on who makes the decisions on certain areas and where the responsibility lies. Therein, the management company would take the financial and fiduciary responsibility. Another thing I'd like to just touch on, because we talked about the management company changing over to another management company. Typically, management companies that come in always review the current personnel. And I think if you look around at who manages the facilities, who manages the golf courses, it's the same people that have been here for years. They keep them on because they're good. And they keep the people in the office because they're good. I think the board is doing a really good job of going out for an RFP to address all issues, including the decision to separate food and beverage and get a company that can provide advice in that area. I thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cal Martin. I am the delegate for District 21. I am also the chair of the Delegate Assembly. And I'm not here to either speak for or against replacing the management company. The board definitely does have the responsibility to review contracts on a periodic basis, all our major contracts, as Sandra said. That is true. What I am is I'm really big on integrity and I'm big on process, because you cannot have a repeatable, successful organization if you do not have your process specified and you do not have integrity in either the individuals or in that process itself. I heard a couple things that I want to clarify. One was that we have not actually done anything with FSR since they came in 2019. That is not exactly accurate. Less than 2 years ago, with the help of, I believe, legal consultants, the FSR contract was renegotiated. We had a substantial improvement from FSR and the charges made against us. So actually, less than 2 years ago, this particular vendor was vetted by the board. And the question hangs is why less than 2 years later we're in the same process. But that's a question for the board to answer, not for me. I also heard that about the I'll get it wrong because in my world the FRP was the request for proposal is the same thing in my world, same acronym, kind of as a fiber reinforced plastic. So I get those turned. But anyway, in the request for proposal, there was a number of things said, but there was one thing missing if you go out and read them, and that is a scope of work. A scope of work is something where we tell somebody what we need done, and how we need it done. And that was missing. We had a lot of questions. What can you do? Do we have to change our banks? And we didn't tell anybody. These are the broad ranges of responsibilities that you will have by coming on as a management company. So the thing that really got me up here, though, is there was an email a lot of you got, probably. If not, you might have found a slip on your door saying that the Delegate Assembly voted at their last meeting not to proceed with having a replacement of the management company. I know a little bit about the Delegate Assembly. I was at that meeting, and that is not what the motion was about. That is not what the delegates voted. I'm going to read to you the exact motion that we had before the Delegate Assembly. It says, "We recommend in the strongest possible terms that the Master Board suspend any activities connected to replacing our management company until a standing procurement advisory committee is reconstituted to advise on any contract in excess of $25,000. The PAC will act in accordance with the process as detailed in the manual posted on the HOA website. Should the board choose to proceed lacking this support, board member recalls will be initiated." We don't take this step lightly. This is kind of a heavy thing to do. Nobody really wants to do this, but we really want a process by which we can all succeed. And we succeed when we slow down, look at what we've done, change that process if it's wrong for the next time around, but we do it by the book. We do it by a book that's been established and out there, and that's all we're asking from the Delegate Assembly. Let's do it right the first time.
Thank you, Cal.
Hello, my name's Robert Wilcox. I've been a resident here for more than 11 years now. I live right on the corner of Country Club and Sneed. You've probably seen me a lot out in my front yard. I served on District 10's board and for a couple of years, and then I moved on and served a couple of years in the City of Banning Planning Commission until this past March when I resigned for reasons that are a whole other subject. I am a person, I'm an engineer, so I get into details. I like details. You can't give me enough information on a subject. And I haven't heard a whole lot of information on why you are wanting to replace First Service. My dealings with them when I was serving on the association here, the board on the board association, was that was very good. People were very responsive, and I haven't had any negative interaction with First Service. But Sandra did a great job presentation to all of us, but I didn't hear any reasons why we need to replace First Service. So you need to give people that information. So engineers like me can check that box. And then really the only other question I had was Sandra mentioned the term came up about health accounts a couple times. I just want to know what are you talking about by health accounts? Oh, house accounts. All right, bad, chalk that up to bad hearing. All right, well, again, okay. Again, I just think you need to, I read in your, in the Lifestyles magazine, in your monthly report, I read that this process had been started. And then the next time I got information was the little slip of paper underneath my doormat on, I think it was Saturday or Sunday morning. That's not a whole lot of notice, and there's not a whole lot of information. So I'm not surprised that our district delegates voted in the way they did. They probably just need more information. So please do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see you all here. Sandra, great presentation. It was very nicely done. Very good to do. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the board for their service to our community. I really know from personal experience how much time it takes away from the things and reasons you moved here to Sun Lakes for. With that said, each board member, either duly elected or appointed, is held to a higher standard and must fulfill your duties of loyalty, due diligence, and confidentiality. These are your fiduciary responsibilities. Your loyalty must be to all community members of Sun Lakes Country Club and not to any individual or for a personal agenda. The definition of due diligence is steps an organization takes to thoroughly investigate and verify an entity before initiating a business arrangement. Right out of whatever I got it, Google, that was where I got it anyway. Synonyms for due diligence include thorough review, careful examination, and rigorous assessment. To do one's due diligence means to perform the necessary research, investigation, and care before making a decision, especially in a business or legal context. This involves a comprehensive process of gathering and analyzing information to ensure a full understanding of a situation and to avoid future liability or financial loss. You're wondering why I'm saying all this. So based on the definition of fiduciary responsibilities, I have a few questions about how you've conducted your search for a new management company. How many of you are experts at reviewing RFPs and contracts? Our most recent contract with our food and beverage management company really was a disaster. Will this go down that road as well? Have you determined the top 3 companies that would be fit for Sun Lakes? Have you listed the pros and cons for each? Have you visited the properties currently managed by these companies? If not, why not? If so, have you met with their board of directors? What was their take on their management company? Have you met with any residents there and their impression of the management company? Have you reviewed how accurate and timely they produce financial statements? What experience do these companies have in managing a property the size of Sun Lakes with 2 golf courses, a restaurant, 3 clubhouses, numerous pools, and all other amenities, not to mention dealing with sub-associations? The board comments and lifestyles have stated that there aren't many companies that will be able to manage us effectively. They just don't have the experience. Have you analyzed how they complete their financial statements, oversee legal requirements for an HOA, and how they perform their operations, including internal controls, processes, and management structure? Have you had any conversations with our legal counsel regarding the RFPs and how to proceed with this process? And lastly, what impact would be bringing in a new management company have on the 2026 budget? In my opinion, to make an informed, meticulous assessment of the companies you are considering, all due diligence could not have possibly been completed by this board. In the short time that you have had since reviewing RFPs and interviewing companies, you haven't had nearly enough time to make an informed, critical, important financial decision that will impact the future of our community. I still have not heard a valid reason for why you want to replace FSR. Having worked with them as a former board member, I know they will continue to work and collaborate with us to make Sun Lakes Country Club the best active 55-plus community in Southern California. Have you done an assessment on FSR's performance in the past year? If not, why not? If so, have you given them the opportunity to address your concerns? Have they not been receptive to your requests? Are they perfect? No, but no management company will be perfect. As a board, your responsibility should be to select a company that best fits the needs of our community. Why are you trying to fix something that is not broken? Please take a moment to do a self-assessment of your own personal actions and be confident that you are being loyal to Sun Lakes Country Club as a whole and not for small groups or individuals. I'm a little concerned about, from what I got, there's 2 board members and 2 people from the FAC. Is that correct? That's 4 people on this committee.
Correct.
Okay, 4 people. All right. A little concerned about that. That's not very many people coming up with what we're needed to do. Anyway, thank you for really listening to everyone here today. Hopefully the board will step back, take to heart the motion made at the delegate meeting, not the incorrect Sue Savage version, and do a self-evaluation of your selection process before making such an important decision on Wednesday. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
HOA Board and Community. I'm Gail Billick, and I'm from District 7, and I'm also a delegate. I've served on the California Teachers Association Board for 9 years, so I'm speaking with an experienced voice. Some of the things I have to say you've heard. Some are concerns, some are questions. I do, Sandra, have a concern with only 4 people on the board as well. Taking the quote president or chair of the FAC, and as a board member, you can't serve 2 roles. So you really don't have that ability. So you really do need to have a bigger committee, and you should have an odd number, as most of us know, on committees. I'm here to discuss the process that should be followed by a board before making such an important decision that will have large implications on our community. There's a lengthy process that should be used thoroughly. First, our PAC committee should come back. PAC and FAC are not the same. They have different jobs and different knowledge. They should be allowed to do the job of reviewing all the proposals, including FSR, that were sent to the HOA board. You as a board are finding it difficult to attend the various advisory committees, so would you have had the time to really review and discuss all the proposals in depth in just a few months? After the PAC has written out the pros and cons of each proposal, the next step would be to share the information and their advice as an advisory committee with the board. After reviewing as a board and having discussions, the board would then select the top 3. Each of these companies would be visited by the board, conversations held with both the board of directors and residents. After the visitations, our lawyers should review each of the contracts to decide if there are any red flags, which others said. What's in there that you didn't catch? They can, and to assist us with our negotiations. Upon completion, then a decision should be made. This is a process. But let's not forget that during this process, the community should be involved in several town hall meetings to share what they believe a company should bring to Sun Lakes. What is important to us? What do we want? What do we know? What do we not know? All of that there. You said FSR was given on a list that they could then respond to in their proposal of issues. I'm sorry, but there are current. That shouldn't be in their proposal. That should be something you're working with them on now and letting them make improvements as they go. I've not heard yet a reason as to why we need to remove them so quickly. This is the same process used by a board to select CCL. As we all know, things aren't running smoothly with them. This board has had to negotiate an amendment to the contract. In fact, surveys from the community noted that more issues about the master board than FSR. Since all of this takes time, and because of my experience, in my personal opinion, this board should not be holding a vote on this topic yet. 3 of you, Joe, Sandra, and Mary Jo, have not been on the board long enough for the process to have been done thoroughly. So if a vote is taken, a proper procedure could be to recuse yourself for lack of knowledge. Listening to others without having experienced concerns does not give you knowledge. I'm asking that the board not take a vote yet, not saying not to bring a recommendation to the community, but to slow down and show us that you're willing to do the true job that it takes to make sure we are getting the best for Sun Lakes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good evening. My name is Bruce Brown. I had the honor of working for a Fortune 100 company.
Lift your mic just up about an inch. There you go.
I had the good fortune of working for a Fortune 100 oil company, as it turned out, selling things like oil and gas and diesel and exports and pipeline and that kind of stuff. It ended up selling Twinkies at AMP. It was because part of what we did was we would take the stations that didn't make profit and we'd give them to this subsidiary that I was loaned to. And then we would work for a year or two and find out what went wrong and see if we could fix it. So I experienced quite a bit of weird things as I went through. But what I really was surprised at is the different ways and different places that you could lose money. And it was amazing. For years, they had line loss, they called it. In transit, they felt they were losing up to 1% of their inventory. Turns out it was a guy stealing barge loads of product for himself using a pipe and taking it into another barge and running off with it. So
Sir?
That went on for a couple of years. There was a guy who basically embezzled money. He was a treasurer.
Sir, is there a question or a comment?
Yes, well, I'm getting to that. You can lose money for a lot of reasons, and what I didn't see up here is what you do during the month to measure. For example, do you do inventory daily? Because the product gets lost, doesn't get lost, it gets basically stolen or walks off. And if you don't do daily inventories or something like that on your food and your liquor, it can walk out the door. It can be double pours. It can be just another one. You know, there's no monitoring of inventory change versus sales. At every company that I've seen that became successful, and ARCO became #1 on the West Coast, they have what they call a dashboard, the daily or weekly operations that gets you to that financial you guys are waiting to see. What is important day to day is the control and monitoring of sales and costs and theft and shrink of inventory and those kinds of things, in addition to the great marketing that you expect. So I didn't see a dashboard. I've never seen what the board requires them to do during the week, during the day, for inventory at month end, analyzing what's stolen, lost, or what, you know.
Yes, I understand what you're
Okay,
saying.
thank you. That's all I had to say.
Thank you so much.
I'm here to speak because I received in my mail slot this little note, and it says in bold and capital letters, the delegates voted to recall the board if the board tries to hire a better management company. So that's exactly, that's what I received in my mailbox.
Go ahead, ma'am, with your comment.
Okay, thank
Go
you,
ahead.
thank you. So what I'd like to say, if I can find my notes now, I'd like to speak briefly to the discussion about rebidding or replacing our current management company. There has been a lot of tension and pressure around this issue, and I think we need to step back and look at the bigger picture. FSR is not perfect, but no management company is perfect. Switching companies is disruptive, costly, and would create even more instability at a time when we already have other priorities. And with dues increasing $25 a month starting in January, adding more upheaval is not what this community needs. I also want to address something important. Some delegates have threatened to recall if the board process with evaluating other management options. While everyone is entitled to their opinion, using recall threats as a tool doesn't move our community forward. It continues the endless division in this community that this community is suffering from and distracts from the real work we need to do together. At this point, our focus should be on stability, cooperation, and addressing the issues we already know exist, not creating conflict over something that is functioning adequately. The silent majority of residents are watching, and what they see is unnecessary turmoil, not progress. So I'm asking that we refocus on the business of our association. Let's strengthen what we already invested in, maintain steady leadership, and avoid creating new problems. Our community deserves collaborative and practical action, not continued division.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. B. Mercado, District 15 delegate. I'd first like to give accolades because I rarely do that. So, Sandra, you did a very fine job today. I wish we had this kind of a town hall every time we had concerns or questions or confusion. This is clarity, this is transparency. I would encourage you to do this much more frequently if we're going to make any major changes in our community. It makes a lot of sense. It takes care of a lot of problems for you and for ourselves. And the fact that you let us speak up here, whether pro or con, is a bonus. So do take into consideration what's been said. I would put focus on the ones who have been longer in their speaking. They are more in-depth, and they've done research, and they are very concerned about our community. I applaud the people that are here, and I want to give a thanks to Sue and Patrick Savage. They are the originators of this memo that you received in your home. It was unauthorized. I am a District 15 delegate. I was not aware of this. This was brought to me by one of my residents. He phoned me to let me know, and he wanted to know what the origin was of this. The fact that it's not signed means confusion. There's no ownership of what is stated here. If you feel pro or con, you should be willing to put your name on something you're going to send out to the community. It's not fair. We all have different opinions. We are still neighbors. We still watch out for each other. That's why we are here living in this community. A lot of good is done here, but a lot of divisiveness comes from this kind of action. So I would hope that you could do better. And thank you again for being here and for listening.
Thank you, B.
Hello, I'm Jane Turline from District 12. My husband and I are about 4-month new members here, new residents, and I learned a lot just in this hour I've been here, so thank you. The only thing I really want to add to what's been said before is that, remember, sometimes no change is a good decision. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi there, Randy Robbins, former delegate Assembly Vice Chair, and former board member. I just wanted to get up here today and say that my workings with FSR while I was on the board were phenomenal. Did they make mistakes? Hell yes. Did we make mistakes as board? And I'm looking at a couple of them. Hell yes, we did. Okay? Are you going to make mistakes? Again, yes. We're all going to make mistakes. Again, I also don't see the absolute clarity of why the change and why the change now. I'm not saying it's wrong. You as a board do have that decision and responsibility. Do I think we need to just all I can ask of the board is to be sure to make the right decisions for the right reasons. Not just it's not all financial, as was stated by Marcia pretty well. It's about relationships as well. If the numbers are $1 million of differential, then it's pretty easy. If it's $50,000, that it's a lot of money, but it's still something that maybe the relationships are more important than that. As Cal mentioned earlier, we did renegotiate the contract. We did do some due diligence, as Bob and Gary both know, and we did that, and we added some accountability to that. The governance policy also relates to their buy-in, which we got from FSR, although it did not get implemented. It got approved, but then not implemented. So I would hope at some point that gets implemented, or a version of it. That way it'll be some consistency from one board to the next. Again, each board can make their own decisions, but the board needs to make sure, I'd like to see that the board is definitely making them for the right reasons, as I said earlier, and are totally informed. Organization that I've been involved with for over 30 years, it says right in their operating manual, the president, and this isn't picking on Joe, it's just as saying it, the president should be the most informed person in the organization. And I believe that's the case with this board as well, because the president runs the meetings. I'm not saying will influence other board members, but can explain the different aspects of what's going on within the community. All right, thank you.
Thanks,
and
Randy.
thank you for all you do.
Kim Johnson, Purdy Drive. Master Board, residents, community, for you who's watching on Channel 97. I remember as a kid, I used to get a report card. Everybody got a report card at school. You got A's, B's, and some got F's. I'd like to see the report card for First Financial that you say is not performing, because 2 years ago, we did go out and negotiate it. I understand the importance of that. My concern is that I think you still need to slow down. Change like this is significant. I miss my Saturday night dinners because I can't go there anymore. And I do not think we really did a good job with CCL in putting an RFP together with the right type of setting, and I think we're heading down the same way. Even though we went to the Community Association Institute, and I am impressed with the presentation, what you have in detail, but I think a lot more is needed to be done. I think you need to take and define the requirements. You still don't have a good scope of work. Do we want calls answered in 3 minutes? Do we want a letter back in 2 days? Do we want to have performance-based measurements so we can everybody in the community should be able to come in here and understand why we're doing it? We don't have that kind of communication. It's sad. And I just think we do not want to change the paradise when you drive through Sun Lakes by making a quick decision. This is something as significant, and a major RFP process usually takes anywhere from 6 months to a year. Then you go through another 6 months of migration, the migration costs. I think it's key that you are going to do some expertise to review stuff, but we ought to have residents here help you in evaluating proposals and look what the true cost is going to be. If you really want how you think some of the community thinks, and the biggest crowd we had was speed limit radar when it was filled, I want to ask the following questions. How many want to see the board slow the process down? Raise your hands up right now. There's some feedback, and I know I'm not alone. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're talking. My name is Jeff Ranieri. I've been here 5 years, but I've been coming here since 1989 when my mom and dad moved in here. A lot of you know my father, Herc and Wanda Ranieri. When I used to come here growing up, this was amazing to me. This place, the atmosphere, the people, which is the best part about it is the people. I'm sitting in the back listening, and everybody is jumping on the board about why are we getting rid of them. I haven't heard anybody say, we're getting rid of them and we're going to find somebody new. I heard them say, we're out there looking, doing our due diligence to see if somebody else could do a better job. And in that process, while looking, we get the benefit of having other companies come in with knowledge and things that we can learn from and say, hey, that's pretty good. So now we can go back to First Service and say, you know what? We saw this, this, and this from Troon. You know, what do you guys offer like that? Do you have anything like that? So then, and I had 36 years in the post office, and when I was managing, it was a lot better to fix the problem with a carrier or a clerk or a manager because I paid money to train them and get them in there. So if I could save them, that's better. So if we can save First Service, if they could learn from what we've learned from other companies and give us a better product, that's probably the best way to go. But let's let them go through the process. And the other part I wanted to say is they're talking about members, oh, they've only been on 2-3 years, they've only been here a little while. That's a new set of eyes. That's a new process for people to look at. Just because they haven't been here 30 years doesn't mean they don't know what they're doing. Let's give them a chance to do their jobs. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Ron Mitchell. I was on the FAC board for 3 years. I served with 3 of you that are on the board here. I'm not a very good talker. I stutter. I got Howard in back that's going to add more to this, so I'm not going to take a long time up here. But you know, as a CPA, there's some obvious things here that nobody has answered, and I directly asked Chris Mitchell the question, and he could not answer it. Under the restaurant for the month of August, the gross sales were $140,000. The payroll was $175,000. Somebody better look and see who is getting paid. That's basic of an audit, in my opinion. And yet I brought it up. Nobody answered the question. What? Well, no, it was before that. If you look at all of the losses, starting in 2018, they were larger at the large First Service was doing it. I asked the question 3 years ago and 2 years ago, and still got no answer. I asked Dan Comerford, who was treasurer on the board, and all I could get from Dan was that he's seen the W-2s. I wanted to talk to the auditor, because the auditor is entitled to see the W-2 forms. I mean, this subsidizing stuff, the restaurant, I made a comment, and I'm sure you guys will disagree with some of this thing, but they were asking me, how do we save money? I said, I'd close the restaurant. If you're losing $700,000 a year, that's real money that the rest of us are subsidizing in dues, and there's a lot of people who struggle on that. So I got Howard going to take over.
Thank you. We're going to take the last 4 comments. We'll be on a timeline here, so the last 4 people. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. My name is Howard Katz. I was Vice President of the PES Action Group, Chairman of the Financial Advisory Committee. I've been a district delegate alternate for a while, and some of you have been receiving my analyses of the financials for the last couple of years. First of all, I want to compliment Sandra on her presentation, because I think the board, through Sandra, is really looking at the right information, although a couple of people have commented on a few things that should be added. And I'd like to thank Marcia Midget and Ken Johnson, who both said some of the things that I want to say, which I will say very quickly. The most important thing that, or two things that are important here is fiduciary responsibility, and that's held by both the board and our management company. They're both responsible for doing the best they possibly can for us financially and tactically. Second of all, they would not be doing, the board, their fiduciary responsibility if they didn't every couple of years look at the contracts, go out and look at all the vendors that are possible, and compare our current vendor with other vendors. If our current vendor wants to supply a response to the RFP, and that response is equal to or better than any of the others that come in, then we shouldn't move to another vendor such as someone else other than FSR. So I haven't heard a thing from Sandra when she was up here saying that the board wanted to move from FSR. What she said is what the board should be doing is looking at all the alternatives. Are we getting the best shake for our dollar? Can we do better? Or are we doing just fine? So I applaud that, and I think we ought to give them the chance to do the job they should be doing. And that means that it's not only with our management company, it's with the restaurant, it's with the people that take care of our common areas, it's every contract that we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, this is Debbie. My name's Debbie Mulatto. I've been with Sun Lakes about 12 years. And I wanted to thank the board for having this town hall meeting. I think it's very informative, and it allows people to hear your voice. I don't have issues so much with the management company, but honestly, it's all about the food. When I first came here, we had a beautiful dining room. It was packed every night. You needed reservations to eat at the dining room. And I know many of you might not agree with me, but Thomas was the best food and beverage manager we had ever had. I literally came to the dining room because of Thomas. I looked forward to what he had as a surprise to eat. He tried to please everybody, and you can't please everyone all of the time. But it's really all about the food, because people congregate together about food, drinks, and coffee, and that's what brings people together. Without the food and affordability, it's not going to pay the bills. I've unfortunately seen a lot of good management staff and the waiters and waiters, their hours have been cut, a lot of people have left, but that is the relationship that we create as a community. And I know a lot of people covet Sun Lakes Country Club because we have a dining room, and a lot of companies do not. A lot of places do not have a dining room that you can come. So I'm disappointed that it has dwindled down to 2 nights of dinner. We just want basic food, affordable food. I'm not looking for fine dining. It's just to bring us all together again as a community where we can have good food, good conversation, and live in a wonderful community. And I love this community, but it's really about the food. So bring Thomas back, and I'll be coming back.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bobby Ashurst, and I did not know that we were having problems. So the first I heard of it was when I got the little sheet of paper on my doorstep. That and whatever I would hear from a neighbor every once in a while who would complain about a process that they had to go through. And so I really need to know what the problems are, and I want to know where you find out about that. Is it, is it in the letter in Sun Lakes magazine? I didn't see it. We need to be informed if there are these issues. Now, I have to say, as far as the restaurant goes, I don't think that we're being fair to Compass only because it hasn't even been a year. And I worked in restaurants for a long, long time, and it's not easy. And it's not, and the composition of Sun Lakes has changed a lot. You know, as I heard from someone else, we used to have 700 golfers, now we only have 300. So, you know, the people that are coming here, why do you come to a golf community if you don't golf? Why do you want to live on the golf course if you don't golf? I don't know, I don't. But to me, it's kind of a, you know, it's an amenity, and friends of mine that golf, I can have them come over and they can come and golf. So all of these issues, I think, need to be looked at, the changes in the demographics. COVID changed everything. You know, it changed the way everything was done and the way it's done now. The restaurant, what it was prior to COVID, and now what has happened, I mean, people stay home. Well, how do we get them out of their houses? You know, there's a lot of issues anyway. I can ramble on. I'm well known for that. So I'm just going to say, I would like to know what the issues are that you are concerned about with the current management. And before any changes are made, I would like to know what is going to be solved. Okay. What the issues are, how they will be solved. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Well, that's okay. You don't need to see me. You need to hear me. Dolores Doherty. I am the delegate for District 4. And I'm a little surprised that I hear a lot of people saying the board is trying to rush this. I don't get that. If you just started at the end of August and it's only, what, November 10th? I don't see that as rushing. And I believe you are taking your time, and you did a great presentation on this, Sandra, so thank you. I sat through our workshop, delegate workshop, and our delegate assembly meeting, and all of the comments made by the delegates were, if we get another company in here, we're not going to know who we're going to get. It doesn't, just because we get a new company does not necessarily mean that we're going to get all new staff members. Tammy Morgan has been here for 30 years. She's been here through quite a few management companies. And what does that tell you? She does a great job. She's good at what she does. Chris is good at what he does, and so is Jason and Mark. And just because they decide to replace the management company does not necessarily mean they're going to be getting rid of them. Another thing I have not heard is, okay, come on, I saw that. No one's talking about the finances. I mean, ever since FSR has come here, the finances have really gone downhill. And is that the problem of the board? Is the board to blame for that? Or is the FSR? Somebody needs to be held accountable for it. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll take closing comments. We're done with comments now. I'm sorry, Mr. Hyatt. I announced it the last four. We're done with comments. We're going to take closing comments. Bob, you want to start?
Yes, I want to thank everybody for coming out. We haven't had a turnout like this, and except for when they talked about the real estate office. we got the message, you know, and that's what we're here, is to collect the information and get the temperature and the feelings of our membership here. I know I was taking notes. It was 12 to retain first service, to not to 4 others, and half a dozen against CCL. So it was, but I like Ken Johnson's comment about shall we slow down and almost everybody raised their hand. You know, it's good to slow down and be thorough in our analysis and making a decision like this. This is a very, very important decision. So thank you, and we have heard you.
Thank you, Bob. Sandra?
No, she's skipping me.
Thank you all, especially it's nice to hear the presentation received. So many of you asked why we are changing, and it's difficult to respond to that because we're not interested in sitting here and chanting, you know, a list of issues with the FSR. I don't think this is an appropriate format for that. So we'll have to think about that as a board. So this was really an intention to explain to you the process, and I'm grateful. I did take notes, but I'm grateful for the gentleman who acknowledged that what we were presenting to you was our process for bidding. And there are a lot of folks who spoke who have already jumped to the conclusion that it's foregone that we will choose a new management company. And I think we tried to stress that we're telling you about our process and we are evaluating these companies. So I want to say, try to hold that thought. So I'm going to let my other board members speak, but and I heard also the idea of slowing down. You also lose opportunities sometimes when you slow down. I don't know how many have experienced this, but you know, you can't make a decision and then you miss an opportunity. So these are all things as a board we're trying to lay against each other. But believe me, this, well, you don't have to believe me, do you? But this is not personal. This is for the best of this community, looking to correct issues and provide enhancements and better service and opportunities. And I'm grateful also for the gentleman who said that sometimes some new faces on the board provide some fresh perspective. So I'm appreciative of that. January will be 9 years that I have lived in the community. My mother has lived here for 23 years, and I've been down here regularly visiting her, and I also remember the days of going to the restaurant and you had to make a reservation because the place was packed out and the food was wonderful, and we always went there. I mean, I've been attached to the community for 23 years. So anyhow, thank you all for your feedback, for your time, your passion, your concern, and your thoughts.
Thank you. Mary Jo?
How about now? Oh, there we go. Okay. What Sandra alluded to in her first slide was shortcomings of FSR, and that's what the board has seen in the past, and certainly we have addressed these with FSR. There has been some conclusions on them, but we still feel that there are some significant issues. I'm talking about just some general topics like resident services, financials, technology, corporate resources, and board support. We have done a very thorough analysis of all these companies that we've received proposals from. And one of the key things that each of these companies say is that they will evaluate the current staff. And in most cases, they keep the current staff. Maybe they need to move somebody around. Maybe someone is better in reception than they are in the background, in the back office. So these are all things that are going to be considered. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Gary?
Yes, I want to thank you all for
Wait,
coming.
are you
Is this-
on, Gary?
Is my mic on? Can you hear me?
Just wasn't close enough.
And I respect all of the people that stepped up tonight, and I know a number of you, and I very much appreciate your comments, and I thank Sandra and the people working on this project. But I can tell you why I have issues with First Service. Ever since I've been, well, before I was on the board, in 2022, I was on the Finance Advisory Committee. And that committee identified issues with regard to First Service's operation. Most specifically, contracts that they negotiated for us. In 2022, the FAC discovered that we were over budget by $50,000 on credit card processing fees. Now that's, like Randy said, a small amount, but it's a symptom of a problem. So we inquired why, the FAC inquired why we were over budget by $50,000 on credit card fees. And they told us that our interest rate on credit card processing was 8%. The standard in the industry is about 3.5% or 4%. And there was a banker on our committee who said that, and I asked him, what kind of companies pay 8% to process credit card companies? And the answer is companies with very poor credit rating or porno shops. And other issues, and this again is before I was on the board. I was elected to the board in April of 2023. But before I was on the board, we had issues with our poor return on investment on our investment accounts that First Service and Morgan Stanley were handling. And not only that, they wouldn't even tell us what our return on investment was. And we discovered, with the help of Ron Mitchell and other people in this room, that we were very slow in responding to increasing interest rates, and our return was very poor. So we met with First Service. A couple of members of the FAC met with First Service, put pressure on them, and our return increased tremendously. And we did get them, after much pressure, and after I told them how to figure it out, basically, what our return on investment was so we could track it. At the end of 2023, a small group of board members and FAC members were put on a committee to look at the performance of the restaurant. So at the end of 2023, we witnessed the taking of inventory at that time. It's the end of the year inventory. What we found was that there was a delivery for the lakes across the street in our inventory. And literally we concluded after much inquiry and looking at things that we had no receiving process. So we didn't know whether we actually received what we paid for. And so we pursued it obviously with First Service and Chris Mitchell, and he admitted as much. And with regard to the ending inventory, Sun Lakes has an inventory control policy. It calls for mapping of the storage room, so when you count the inventory, you know what should be in certain places. It calls for a department manager to sign off on the inventory and basically attest to its completeness. None of those things were actually done in connection with that inventory. So that committee made a recommendation that we put out an RFP for food and beverage. Now, I'll be the first one to admit to you that CCL is not perfect and the contract with them is not perfect. But we did the best we could. We make mistakes, and we move on and look for remedies. There's one other issue that relates to contracts with First Service. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that First Service has cost us, or could have cost us, at least $1 million in their help in negotiating contracts for us. I discovered, through the help of members of this community, that in 2020, when we were negotiating a contract with a vendor, that another community with about 30 miles of here was negotiating at the exact same time, or within months of that time, with the same vendor. And when they finished negotiating, they ended up paying around $200,000 a year less for the same contract than we did. That was with First Service's help. In 2025, we negotiated with a vendor that First Service sprung on us what they said was an opportunity to get a great deal. Well, we found out that there was other communities, again, negotiating with this vendor, and that even though they put some pressure on us to enter into this contract, we reversed the decision to work with First Service, and in the end, we obtained what they proposed was a benefit of $750,000 in connection with this contract. We ultimately benefited $1.6 million. So almost $1 million better deal. So to answer the question why we're here today, that's the answer.
Thank you, Gary.
I'm done.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming out today. I learned a lot personally as a resident here. What we really have, what we have here is an amazing community. And I please trust me when I tell you, in no way is anybody sitting here trying to hurt our community. We're taking our time. We're going to look at every option possible, legal counsel, consultations. It will go on for quite a while, but thank you for your input. I learned a lot today from all of you, and appreciate you coming out. The participation was amazing. Mr. Hyatt, I'll talk to you afterwards. I apologize. We had shut it off at the last four, and you probably didn't hear that, but Tom, I'll come over and talk to you. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful day.